It's finally happening! SpaceX is building its second tower. Get ready because soon we will see two Starships stacked at the same time. Let's break it down. We're less than a month away from SpaceX's third orbital flight, and the buzz is building as the company gears up to construct its second launch tower. This move is set to take SpaceX's launch excitement to new heights. But wait, there's more to uncover. Rumor has it that SpaceX is eyeing Valentine's Day for the next attempt to send Starship into orbit. Starbase might just be the place for lovers of space exploration. While it's still speculative, the progress with Booster 10 and Ship 28 adds weight to the idea. In fact, there is a possibility of seeing these vehicles stacked in under a week. Following this, a swift wet dress rehearsal, a test simulating flight conditions, is the final step before the third orbital Starship is launch ready, aligning perfectly with SpaceX's timeline of having the hardware ready by the end of January. Exciting, right? But that's not all. SpaceX has already made moves on the paperwork front, submitting a request for a modified launch license and providing a mishap report from the second launch. It seems they're opting for a low-key approach this time, avoiding public discord. Don't be surprised if the new launch license quietly materializes without prior announcements. Switching gears, recent observations hint that the original orbital tank farm at Starbase might be here to stay. Reinforcements, both vertical and horizontal, on nitrogen and water tanks raise intriguing questions about potential additional layers of protection. Now, let's shift our focus to the real game changer, the second tower at Starbase. On January 22nd, the delivery of another beam for OLIT 2 signals that construction may be on the horizon. This prompts us to examine the components already at Starbase and speculate on the construction phase. The journey of the second tower traces back to November, just before the second Starship launch, with the arrival of components for the Top 8 section, aka Section 8A. These parts were later transported to the Sanchez site as spotted by Red Line helicopter tours. Meanwhile, another section of the orbital tower has been patiently waiting at the port of Brownsville, likely the 7th section from Roberts Road. This facility, nestled near the Kennedy Space Center, is where SpaceX crafted segments for the Orbital Launch Integration Tower destined for Florida's X-Apollo Pad 39A. Following the successful installation of all segments at LC-39A, SpaceX has embarked on an unexpected move, the construction of a third integration tower. It might seem a bit puzzling at first, but this spare tower is now making its way, piece by piece, to Boca Chica to transform into the second Starbase tower. Now, moving heavy tower sections isn't a walk in the park, so SpaceX has laid down reinforced concrete pads, visible in one of our flyovers, to handle these colossal pieces. On January 23rd, prefabrication footings were installed on one of these pads, marking the beginning of the assembly for the first tower segment. As construction kicks off, the initial phase will likely involve addressing excess water. While the exact location for the second OLIT isn't confirmed, SpaceX's initial plans suggest it would be around 100 meters or 330 feet from the existing one. Pending permits and approvals, the next step is stabilizing the ground. But here's the catch. The launch site is in wetlands, where the soil resembles a wet sponge, far from ideal for a massive structure. So, get ready for wick drains, acting like straws, pulling water up from deeper layers, a process that may take a few weeks but is a crucial step given the challenging terrain. Once most of the water is out, we'll witness the introduction of piles, potentially hundreds of them, large and small, to further stabilize the ground. Remember the lesson from the first launch: the foundation under the first launch mount needed more stability. Expect a more robust piling operation this time to avoid a repeat. After achieving stable ground, the construction of foundations for both the new tower and the orbital launch mount will commence. Drawing inspiration from LC-39A, the legs of the second launch table might be installed at a straighter angle, possibly to future-proof it for accommodating a potential increase in Starship mass. Picture this: legs filled with concrete to fortify the structure. Unlike the first tower, this time the early steps may involve setting up the water deluge system efficiently. Speaking of efficiency, the installation of the system at the first tower faced challenges due to it being an afterthought. Learning from that, SpaceX is likely to set up the deluge system from the start, streamlining the process and reducing installation time. Following these preparations, the site will soon be bustling scene with rebar engulfing the area, ready for the significant quantities of concrete to be poured, an essential step in bringing this extraordinary project to life. The inclusion of rebar in the construction process is vital. It's a preventive measure to avoid a repeat of the mishap during the first launch when exhaust gases found their way into a concrete crack, sending sizable chunks airborne. Keeping an eye on progress, a U-shaped hole near the launch mount will be a telltale sign that work on the tower's base has kicked off. Similar to its predecessor, the second OLED is expected to sport a concrete base housing crucial elements like electronic systems, hydraulics, and drawworks. Once the foundations are poured, it's estimated to take less than 30 days before we witness the installation of the initial metal sections. Unlike the first tower, SpaceX will start by installing full sections from the get-go, requiring the assistance of a heavy-duty crane like the legendary LR-11350. To provide some context, the assembly of OLED 1 began in April 2021, with the final section lifted by the end of July 2021, a mere 3 months later. The assembly of the second tower is anticipated to be even swifter. While segments are stacked, the teams at Starbase will work concurrently on connecting infrastructure like piping for the quick disconnect arm. Expect sections to be hoisted into place already equipped with necessary hardware, streamlining the process significantly. Once the main structure is complete, attention turns to installing components like pulleys, the quick disconnect arm, and the chopsticks, a vital part of the Mechazilla crane. Unlike the first tower, where Mechazilla arms were assembled on site, a pair of chopsticks and a quick disconnect arm are already awaiting installation at Roberts Road. Transporting these components in one piece should expedite their installation. Interestingly, the new chopsticks are shorter than those in use at Starbase, but despite the difference, they're expected to be capable of catching the super heavy booster. After completing the first Mechazilla, SpaceX conducted load tests using massive sacks to evaluate the system's lifting capacity. Whether the new chopsticks will undergo similar testing remains to be seen. As for the orbital launch table, its construction is likely to progress independently of the tower. A deck is already under construction in Florida, but the challenge lies in its weight, potentially limiting transportation over public roads. If SpaceX aims to utilize the new tower within the year, prioritizing work on the launch table is crucial given its complexity. Despite its unassuming appearance, the launch deck incorporates thousands of sensors and connections for the Raptor and booster quick disconnects. Constructing it from the ground up is a task that could span several months. So when can we expect the second tower to be ready? Considering the foundations for the original launch table were laid around June 2020 and Ship 20 was hoisted for the first time in February 2022, the construction this time is expected to be more efficient, but operational readiness won't likely happen within a month or two after the first batch of concrete is poured. In other news, the FAA has recently spilled the beans on crucial details about the launch license, and the launch site is getting a major facelift. SpaceX is gearing up for the second Starship launch tower, and we've got the inside scoop on all the latest updates. Starship 28 and Super Heavy Booster 10 are currently in the final stages of preparation for their upcoming third integrated flight test. Ship 28, after completing meticulous checks and verifications, made a brief exit from the high bay, but is now back on its transport stand, signaling that it's all set for its journey to the launch site. Meanwhile, Booster 10 is undergoing its last processing stages inside the Mega Bay. The dynamic duo is expected to roll out to the launch site by late January or early February, setting the stage for an exciting flight test. As for the launch license, SpaceX is awaiting the green signal from the FAA with expectations to receive it next month. The FAA spokesperson confirmed that SpaceX has submitted its mishap investigation report and modifications for the Flight 3 launch license are already in the works. The launch pad is also gearing up for Flight 3, with final inspections and repair work on the launch mount underway. But that's not all. Significant upgrades are in progress. As we explained previously, the launch tower's concrete base is getting steel panel protection to handle the intense heat and shock waves during launches learned from the experiences of the first two launches. A new concrete blast wall is being installed between the launch mount and the orbital tank farm for added protection. The tank farm is expanding too, with new horizontal propellant tanks arriving at the site. The vertical tank's fate is still up in the air as workers reinforce some with external supports, potentially repurposing them for water storage. It seems there might be a shift in SpaceX's strategy regarding the vertical tanks. Switching gears to the prototypes, Super Heavy Booster 12 is undergoing static fire testing and Booster 11 is being prepped for engine installation. The Mega Bay is a bustling scene with Booster 13's liquid methane tank section stacking in progress. Starship 29 is inside Mega Bay 2, while the next generation Starship prototypes, V2 and beyond, promise increased capacity and design modifications. Exciting times are ahead at Starbase as SpaceX works tirelessly on these developments. So, what are your thoughts about the upcoming flight test, the second launch tower, and the evolving strategies for the tanks? Share with us in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, show us some love by hitting that like button and leaving a comment down below. Also, if you're a fan of all things technology, be sure to check out this other video we've got lined up for you. It's packed with all the latest news, tips and tricks to keep you ahead of the curve.